IndyCar's back, and Scott Dixon starts the quest for lucky number 7. Welcome back to Motorsport 101. Our favourite single-seater series, not named Formula 2, is back. Hey everybody, I'm Andre Harrison. Welcome to episode 296 of the Motorsport 101 podcast. And welcome to the season finale of what we call season preview season here on the podcast, because everyone's doing season previews, and this is the last one we're really doing, and it's going to be for the 2021 NTT Data IndyCar Series. I almost said Verizon there. Oh, I saved myself at the last minute. Good job, me. With me, as always, Ryan Eric King. How are you finding your new studio?
It is fun, a whole lot easier, and I can't believe we might be talking about 7 again.
Yeah, again. Like, you thought you were sick of this last year. We're doing it all over again. Only this time it's over an Australian fella.
Oh man, we're not in the basement of a housing project.
No, definitely not.
And I can put my car keys back in my pocket.
True. Very true. I was like, don't worry, King, if you're sick of this now, don't worry, we'll bring it back next year to talk about Jonathan Ray.
Oh, God.
We'll keep that streak going. It's like, it's the third wheel on the Lucky 7 slot machine. You can't wait.
I would say something about World Superbike, but if I do, I'll be in trouble.
Oh dear, that's not a good sign. Let's move it on quickly.
So suddenly in the background appears a former member of our network brandishing a knife.
Oh dear. RJ's here. Hello, sir.
I'm going to miss you, Barber Motorsports Park. I'm going to miss you being about 2 hours driving distance away. But such is what happens when you move all the way up that way across the country. I'm excited for this season. It's going to be great.
Indeed. Can't wait. And Cam Buckley is here, who is angry at all of us because he's had to record this new studio setup, which we'll get to very shortly. He's had to be forced to use Google Chrome for the first time in about 6 years.
There's nothing like looking into a browser that you haven't used since the early 2010s. Seeing your imported from Internet Explorer bookmarks and seeing a bunch of music uploads that have all been copyrighted. They're all gone. My recording of the 1992 Pearl Jam Unplugged, gone.
Oh dear.
But,
a moment of silence for his Pearl Jam recording. It's the only minute silence we're doing on this podcast this week.
Oh, Lord.
What are we talking about today, Dre?
I don't know. Apparently I'm going off to the Tower of London in a minute, but you three can talk about the 2020 IndyCar Season Preview, especially.
We're about to have a minute's silence for me.
Hey man, me as well. We'll get it out of the way together. We'll make it a 2-minute silence. We'll just stack them back to back before the Formula 1 race starts.
It's like stacking 2 lasagnas together, thus creating 1 lasagna.
Delicious. So we'll be talking 2021 IndyCar Season Preview. We'll be going through all the full-time runners and riders from Team Penske all the way down to Carlin, and we'll be breaking all of that down over the next probably hour or so on the show. And a lot of reasons to be excited. Just generally speaking, if you want to be a little bit generic for a minute here, all 3 of our favourite series we cover on this podcast are all racing this weekend. We have Formula 1 at Imola, MotoGP at Portimao, with the return of Marc Marquez confirmed. We'll talk about that on our next episode, although it'll probably be a bit weird talking about it in the past tense. Yeah, Marc Marquez finished 3rd in Portimao, and we had no idea he was coming back. So... upload orders. It's a strange time. We're recording both this and 297 at the same time. But it'll be fun breaking all of that down. And of course, IndyCar's season opener at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama. So that'll be very fun indeed. Places you can find us as we get the general housekeeping out of the way first, though. We're on youtube.com/motorsport101 if you're watching us on there. Hi! Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when our upload goes live. I'm not sure how King's going to organise it, but I'm sure we'll have our social media handles on the screen like we had before. Yep. So you can follow us on Twitter at motorsport_101. Our handles are on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, they're at Harrison101HD, at Ryan Eric King, at CBuckley917, and at RJ O'Connell. You can follow us on Instagram for the latest updates on there as well, at Motorsport101pod. And if you really, really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon. Now, I've got to be a little bit different about how I word this, and you'll see why in a minute. But don't worry, the audio tiers and the video tiers are still staying the same. $5 for the audio tier, $10 for the video versions as well. But we're going to be recording it a little bit differently. We used to record via Discord directly. We're no longer doing that. We're using an app called Riverside FM instead. But what we'll do is, in the supporters club of our Discord server, you'll have links to be able to either join the Riverside FM room we record in as an audience member, or have access to an unlisted YouTube live stream we'll have instead as well. You'll still be able to listen to these shows live as they're being recorded. It's just a little bit different. Don't worry, it will work out fine. It's more complicated. It's less complicated than I made it sound, I promise. But don't worry, all the audio and video tiers remain the same. That is a promise. So if you really, really like us, you can back us financially on there. Good times indeed. All details and all of that stuff as well, and our entire archive on our website, motorsport101.com. But in the meantime, let's get into what's going to be a awesome time, the 2021 IndyCar Season Preview, right after this. So, just a little bit more general housekeeping before we get into the real nitty-gritty of this. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten the Indy 500 part-timers. We will cover those in a bit more detail during the month of May. We promise.
When they actually show up for their appearances.
Yeah, minor spoiler alert though, we're probably going to be seeing a return of Bump Day. You've been warned.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's pretty definitive that we are going to see it this year.
Yeah, it's looking more or less nailed on.
Always adds another element of drama to the month of May.
Of course. Did you miss it last year? Well, it's probably back.
Depends on screams in McLaren IndyCar.
Still one of the all-time classics. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go team by team. We'll introduce the drivers, and we'll have a little chat about each team as we go down the list. Like I said, this is just the full-time runners, and the part-timers are doing a bit more than just the month of May, for example. There's a few instances where guys will also be splitting cars. We'll break that down in greater detail as well. I'll give you a hint. One of them involves Ed Carpenter. I know, you're shocked. So, without further ado, let's tackle the main juggernaut first and foremost. Team Penske. Back to 4 cars this year. They only had 3 last year, but we have full-time runners again. It's like when I first got into the series in 2014 all over again. Returning in the number 2 car, Josef Newgarden, last year's championship runner-up. Number 12, again, Will Power in the 12 car. Simon Pagenaud in the 22 car. And we have a very exciting new rookie in the number 3 car. 3-time Australian Supercars champion, 3 times over. Scott Mclaughlin makes his full-time debut after filling in towards the end of last year at St. Petersburg for his official debut, I guess you could say. But this will be his first full-time season. So, last season was probably one of disappointment for Team Penske. They lost both major honours they were holding on to in 2020, with Takuma winning the 500, and of course Dixon taking his 6th title as well in the main series. A season of frustration. Newgarden made a late charge. Pagenaud was only flashes of his usual brilliance. Power is probably still mad at his pit crew low-key. Where do we sit on Penske, the team, at this point? Because I was wondering, is Roger going to take 2 years without a major honour in a row without making changes, I think? Because I want to throw it to you guys on this one.
I'd say definitely no. Penske is always, they always want to be in the position where they're perennial contenders for either the championship or the 500. And last year, they put that case out there strong, where it's like, last year they were heavily, like, I can't remember the last time a rookie was as hotly anticipated as Scott McLaughlin.
When Roger Penske is saying you're one of the most talented drivers I've had since Rick Mears, that is high praise. And obviously, we've seen what Scotty McLaughlin is capable of. He ran the SuperCar's field over years in a row. Was it 2 years ago? He was so dominant that the series was punishing the Ford Mustang as a whole, and he was the only one winning in it. And, last year, really a story of missed opportunities with Penske. 500, they were never really in contention. They looked fast in race trim, but Chevy's issues in qualifying trim, coupled to the race we saw where there really wasn't much of any passing past really third place, they were mired in the pack and there was nothing they could do. The title, on the other hand, you can point to 3 or 4 races where they threw a whole bag of points right in the trash, especially for Newgarden and Power.
It's amazing to think that in a season last year we have 14 races, Penske drivers combined to win half of them, and we're talking about 2020 like it was a crushing disappointment.
Who are they? Yamaha MotoGP?
That's kind
Get out of my head, Harrison! Get out of my head!
That's the standard that Penske sets for themselves. And I don't see any reason to think that they won't be contending to win half the races again, to at least have one of their cars, if not 2 or 3. As I drop my microphone for a second,
they need to show better at the 500. I don't think that's so much on them as it is on their engine supplier. But in the year, Newgarden was as competitive as ever. I don't think last year's title loss is necessarily on him. Power, when he's good, he is still just as good as he ever was. When he's not, it can be rough. And Pagenaud, listeners know Simon Pagenaud is my boy. Simon Pagenaud would tell you that he wasn't good enough last year, bar the occasional flash, the last to first challenge. That's about it as far as last year. And Pagenaud knows that he needs to be better because he came off a year where he won the Indy 500 and one of the most dominant modern performances at Indy. Yeah. And was champion 5 years ago.
Hell, first half of the season, the first half of 2020, Pagenaud was not all that bad. Hell, he was second in the championship after the Iowa doubleheader weekend, and then he didn't have a single top 5 finish for the rest of the season. That was pretty much the opposite of what happened to Will Power, who, it seems like for the second or third year in a row, just got out of the gates too slow to make a championship run.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but when you have the opportunities that Penske had last year, you can't give them up to someone like one Mr. Scott Dixon.
Yeah, that's going to be the main threat. Penske knows that's probably going to be the main threat. They have 3 exceptional bullets in the chamber, all former series champions. 2 of the 3 having won 500s in their own right as well. And yeah, like, how do you guys think Scott McLaughlin will fare? As I'm saying, I did not know that Roger thought that highly of him. Like, I know, obviously, giving him a seat in his car and making a 4th car for him is probably already a massive endorsement, but
he gave him the yellow submarine.
Yeah!
That is
Helios
royalty.
Car.
That is royalty in the Penske hierarchy. I think Scott might take a little bit of time to adapt. I think once he does, Scott McLaughlin is going to acquit himself. I think he's going to do very, very well.
Here's the 2 things that Scott has in his factor. He has a full off-season to deal with, not a weird pandemic-affected off-season to work with to get adjusted to the car. Anecdotally, guys that come out of tin tops tend to do a lot better than people think. Because, like, Franchitti came straight out of DTM, did quite well. Wickens came straight out of
Pretty good.
DTM, was doing quite well in his rookie year, which was unfortunately cut short. Rosenquist comes with a background in GT3s. He does exceptionally well. I don't think there's any reason to think that Scott McLaughlin is not being put in a position to succeed. And if he does, they have a driver that is going to carry them into the future for many, many years to come if he succeeds at this. And he's certainly talented enough to do so.
Yeah,
his talent is above reproach.
Like, I'd say if I'm Scott McLaughlin, my goal would be finish top 10 in the championship and get a maiden win. That'd be my goals for the year if I was McLaughlin.
I think he will as well. I think we'll see him in contention to win, if not winning races, at least by the end of this year.
High praise, decent expectations. It's the Penske way. We know it. We know it.
And we barely touched on my guy Josef Newgarden,
who the perennial championship contender.
Yeah. Will get you at least 3 or 4 wins a year solid. Always going to be in the midst. It's an odd numbered year, coming off an unsuccessful defense of a championship, and that seems to be when Josef finds his 7th and 8th gears.
Hashtag reclaim the one.
It's hashtag reclaim the one again.
Yeah. And look, we know what Team Penske's all about. It's championship or 500 or both or bust.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, so I can't believe we've barely mentioned Josef Newgarden, who pound for pound might be the best driver in the series all round. Like, he's been championship. He's either won the title or been runner-up the last 3 years. That is insane in a division that is that talented and has Scott Dixon at the front of the field.
And he's still got 10 good years of his prime left ahead of him, health willing.
Still only 29 years old as well.
Look at last year. I mean, Penske were, let's call a spade. They were garbage in the 500.
Yeah.
Newgarden was the one who was able to get through the field through clever pit strategy and good driving. And without that, if they were more competitive at the 500, his run at Dixon to close out the year, when Dixon had we all thought it was almost insurmountable. And he alone made a championship of it. Didn't quite get there in the end, but he gave it his everything and made Scott Dixon look over his shoulder by the end of the year.
Yeah, we literally, I remember we recorded the 500 last year afterwards, and we thought Dixon, even though he finished second in the 500 that year, had one handle that's overall title already, because you still get 80 points for second place. So, we were all sitting there thinking, okay, he's not won the 500. I know Dixon really wants another 500 ring, but it still put him in prime position for the championship, which it did. It was a bit tight at the end, but he still got him over the line, and that's the most important thing. But yeah, Penske, we know how it goes. It's championships or bust, and let's get into the chasing pack behind them. First and foremost, the second of the massive 4-car big-name fleets, Andretti also sports, and I like to say in brackets, and friends. We have Steinbrenner running the 29 car as well, and we have Herter's gang as well at Marco's car, but as we talked about in January earlier this year, Marco is only running the 500 this year while he ventures into other series. In the meantime, they have amassed what can only be described as a fleet of ridiculous talent. In the 26 car, Colton Herter, who finished third in the championship last year, and it's still easy to forget is still only 20 years old. Alex Rossi in the 27 car, Ryan Hunter-Reay in the 28 car, and returning in the 29 car, the people's champion, the mayor of Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe,
Dre's champion.
Is back as well.
Dre is the people.
Number one in my heart, James Hinchcliffe, is back for 2021, and I mean, the way I summed it up in the notes, and when we wrote this out, was, if James Hinchcliffe is your flaw, what sort of team have you amassed here? Like, this is
It's a
this
juggernaut.
is a nasty looking. It's a juggernaut-looking team, and then you look at it and you realise the best performer in Andretti last year was Colton Herter, who had like an incredible season last year to finish third overall. Again, we wax lyrical about how talented this series is. For Colton Herter to finish third overall in his second full-time season is unbelievably
Incredibly
good.
impressive.
Yeah. Being
And
a
what was
young
effectively
driver in
still
IndyCar is really, really hard. And I want to say, like, the only bad weekend that Colton Herter had was in Iowa. Otherwise, he was just rattling off top 5s, podiums, top 10s. He, of course, won Mid-Ohio from the pole in pretty convincing fashion.
He was Andretti Autosport's only shining light in what was otherwise a pretty dismal year. Because for all the talent they have, and they have more than enough, Andretti Autosport just haven't performed lately. It's almost as if they've overextended themselves, where Alexander Rossi was just walking under every ladder, walking by every black cat, stepping on every crack in the sidewalk. It's almost impossible to have worse luck than Alex did last year.
I nicknamed it Bad Car and G in the show notes because that's exactly what it was. He just had I think he was taken out of maybe 4 different races last year and still finished in the top 10 of the championship. We all know...
Alongside Takuma, he was the only guy who gave Scott Dixon a thought at the 500.
Pretty much. I think it's fair to say, King, if it's dialed in, there's no reason why Alex Rossi can't win a championship. Or anything in this series. He's just that good all round.
Yeah, like, Alexander Rossi should be within realistic reach of the championship at every season finale for the rest of his career. Like, there's no reason he cannot talent.
Yeah, his talent, I mean, we've seen it. Of course, a couple of years ago, championship battles where he was just going hammer blows with Newgarden all the way to the very end of the year. And it's just odd last year we didn't really see him running at the front at all other than the 500.
I've got his racing reference stats up. He only had 8 lead lap finishes out of 14 races, and he only led 83 laps. He had 4 DNFs, which I don't even think he had that for the last 2 seasons combined.
Yeah. It was an off year for a driver we know is better than what his results showed.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the very best in the series, and he'll still. I think he's still the psychological leader of this team, but he's got backup now beneath him with Colton Herter, where Andretti for the first time in a while might have 2 genuine bullets in the chamber for both major honours in the series. I want to mention 28 on Hunter Ray for a second as well. This is his age 40 season now for Captain America. I wonder, is he in a vulnerable position now? I know he brings a lot of sponsorship. I know the DHL car is an iconic part of the team. But 10th place for a guy of his level last year?
RHR...
Could that be a weak spot?
Since the introduction of the IR-18, Ryan Hunter-Ray just hasn't been at the races.
I don't know.
Occasionally
He had a great first season of the IR-18 level. Let's not forget, in 2018, he won twice and finished 4th in the standings, but it's been a gradual decline ever since, where he went from 8th to 10th, and, that's still a pretty high standard if you consider a guy that's still finishing consistently in the top 10 of the standings in decline.
But
Some drivers would love to have that decline.
But we think of Ryan Hunter-Ray as someone who's fighting for Indy 500s, fighting for championships. For a long time was leading the charge for Andretti Autosport.
Yeah.
I hope we see a resurgence out of him because he's always a fun presence at the front of the sport. His battle with Castor Neves in 2014 for the 500 is one of my favorites.
2 wheels on the grass. Legendary. No, like I said, it's just perspective. Like, Hunter Ray's the 3rd wheel in this team. And he'd be at least a 2 in almost any other team in the field, bar Penske. I would say. So, again, it just puts into perspective that Andretti is going all in on driver talent this year. We've barely even mentioned James Hinchcliffe, who's seemingly come home after tried to be the big fish at Schmidt-Peterson, didn't work out, was out of the sport altogether last year. We saw him on the broadcasting
back
team.
full-time.
Back full-time, replacing Zach Veach. Look, I said on Twitter to people that, because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't think James should be on this level, and I say this before, if he's your fourth option, it's a luxury pick in that sense, where if you've got the luxury to be able to run 4 cars, you can do a hell of a lot worse for a fourth option than James Hinchcliffe, right?
Well, just as well. I mean, he came in last year, part-time, had been out of the sport, hadn't driven a car with the aero screen implemented, and did pretty well.
He reached the Fast 9 in the 500, which is something that is well documented at times. He would have killed to have that at his previous employer. And he finished in the top 10 like he'd barely been away at the 500.
Yeah.
That's what still gives me confidence that, look, even if James Hinchcliffe is never going to be an IndyCar Series champion, he's still going to be a contender at the Indianapolis 500. He's still going to be a contender to give at least one win a season. And people genuinely like this dude. He's good for the sport.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador for IndyCar.
Yeah,
and while we still haven't covered all 3 teams in the Big 3 yet, if, say, Hinchcliffe and Hunter-Reay are drivers 11 and 12 out of the 12 seats in the Big 3, that ain't bad.
Nah, that ain't bad.
No, and I think being full-time, being in it must be a better environment than what it had to have been at Schmidt-Peterson by the end of that partnership. I think Hinch will do fine this year.
I do too.
Maybe a win or 2.
Yeah, and I think there's no real pressure on him to really succeed in this setup, given, as I said, he's the floor guy in this team. They're going to be expecting probably Herter and obviously probably Rossi to be their 2 frontline contenders. If they can get Hinch or Hunter-Reay up there as well, hey, you're playing with house money at this point. Yep. So that's the luxury of having Hinch as a 4th option. And as RJ alluded to, they're going to have 5 cars for the 500 at least. And Marco Andretti, I know he had an awful time last season, but qualified on pole for the 500 and was, still a guy that can challenge for the real, crown jewel of the season, which is the 500.
Nothing else that Marco Andretti has, if he has no other value, whatever you think of Marco Andretti as a driver, they really appreciate having his setup knowledge at Andretti Autosport, particularly for dudes who may be new to this game or may have been out of sorts for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's the setup anchor of Andretti Autosport at the 500.
Yeah.
Has been for a decade.
And it's also hard to ignore the marketing value of Marco Andretti possibly winning the Indianapolis 500. The only thing that comes close to it is someone winning their 4th 500. That is probably...
We'll talk about that guy later. That's come unplugged. And... What I want to cap off Andretti Autosport with is I think what they need to be careful with is, like last year, they need to be careful that they don't overextend themselves as a team. Because it feels like they were running so many cars and trying to put so much resource into all of them that it kind of diluted the team. Herta was great. Herta also never once looked like he was ever going to make a run at the championship. I think that needs to change this year.
Big time. The third of the quote-unquote IndyCar Big 3. He likes winners. It's Chip Ganassi Racing. And CGR, again, is expanded to 4 cars for the season. In the 8 car, Marcus Ericsson, our favourite Husky chocolate friend. In the number 9 car, you know him, we know him, Dixie Scott Dixon, the reigning, defending, 6-time IndyCar Series champion.
Of the world!
Dixon.
Thank you. And he's got help. He's got backup, because in the 10 car replacing Felix Rosenquist, Alex Palu, and we'll get to him briefly. And King, don't start flickering back there.
I'm fine.
Do you like my note in the set list?
Yep.
The one that said, quote, easy to forget he was on the podium in his third ever race in the series, running top 10 in the 500 before spinning, and beat, I think Cam added the word embarrassed King on iRacing that one time. The King, it was an honourable second.
No.
There's no shame in that, you know. Alex Palu, the number 10 car, and some guy in a fourth car, the 42,
48. Some guy.
Some guy who knows a lot about 7.
Jimmie Johnson. Well, he knows more about 7 than just about anyone.
He knows more about 7 than grits and gravy, rolling 77 consecutive 7s.
What you know about 7? Pay me.
Every time I go back to that
7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmie Johnson, sharing duties with some guy named. Wait, he's still in the league? Tony Kanaan?
Tony Kanaan is like the drill of IndyCar. He will never log off. Never.
He's never logging off.
No, Tony Kanaan, who was meant to be on a retirement tour last year, is back to run the ovals for Chip in the 48 car, because Jimmie Johnson's not doing the ovals, ... yet. Apparently, according to Jenna Fryer yesterday, it looks like Jimmy might have come around on the idea of running ovals maybe in 2022. Including the 500, but for now he's only running the road and street courses with TK taking the ovals. I mean, where else do we start than Scott Dixon? You know, probably favourite on paper. You know, it was unbelievable the first half of last season, even by his standards. It was astonishingly good.
Hat-trick wins to start the year. Fort Worth, Indy GP. First half of Road America to open the season. Only finished outside the top 10 once all last season. But for all that he's accomplished, in the sport, 6 titles, climbing up the wins record list, he's never successfully defended a championship. Not for lack of trying. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and of course last year, it took everything Takuma Sato had to end his reign over just a dominant Indy 500 performance.
I mean, he was the only man that could give Dixon something to really think about, and then beat him in the final stint of that race. But it was looking like Dixie was going to roll the field over.
111 laps led, more than half the race. Comes away with second place. And again, he's only won one Indianapolis 500, which you think, for a guy that has accomplished so much that he has, you think, he should have more than one of these.
I mean, it's not for lack of trying, but running up against people like Franchitti, Weldon, the Penske Brigade, of course, Takuma last year. Every time he goes for the 500, every time he's trying to defend his title, there's someone standing in the way. But Skip, look, he's Scott fucking Dixon.
Pretty much. Like, what more do you want us to say? Well,
Chip Ganassi likes winners, and boy, does he have one.
Yeah.
He has one of the series' ultimate winners in front of him right here and now.
Consummate
I said, if you picked Dixon for either major honour in this series, everyone would just probably nod and go, yeah, it's a fair pick.
And he's 41. 41 and aging like a fine wine.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old he is. Dixon is just... There has been no sign of decline in Scott Dixon in his age 41 season whatsoever. None.
No.
Not a sausage, not a pancake batter in sight.
And even when... And as last year proved, even when he perhaps isn't the fastest, is caught out by someone else, he always brings home the points.
Always.
He is one of the most relentlessly consistent racing drivers on Earth. He will punish any mistake, and even when he isn't, he's probably still going to beat you.
He had a garbage weekend at Mid-Ohio, which is his second home by his standard.
Yeah, he had a garbage end to the year, and it just didn't matter.
Never finished outside the top 10. A garbage weekend by his standards of Mid-Ohio, a track that usually dominates, and he still comes away with 2 top 10 finishes to maintain his points lead. How do you stop that?
It took Newgarden at his absolute best to even make it interesting.
I say they almost had each other's seasons in reverse. But of course, the 500 was the difference maker. Dixon was electric in the 500, again, only beaten by a raging Takuma Sato.
Oh yeah,
and there's no reason to think that he won't make another run at it next year or this season.
Indeed. I mean, let's look at the other guys in the team. We got to talk about Alex Palu, and this is one of that fantastic. Incredible 2020 rookie class that captured a lot of hearts, a lot of minds, on a lot of fans, and excited a lot of people. And Palu on the podium in his third ever series race was running top 10 at the 500 before he spun himself out, which was a real shame because he was looking very good all week at Indianapolis. If Chip likes to build, obviously he builds it around Dixon. That goes without saying. He likes having a great rear gunner in the 10 car. Felix was okay, had his first win. We'll get to. It was up and down. He likes having a rear gunner. If you can snag someone as talented as Alex this young, and he was this good as a rookie, I think this is a fantastic move for Alex, for all parties.
If he progresses the way, we watched him last year. RJ and I watched him in Super Formula, and he was sensational.
Right. Hard to believe that was only 2 years ago.
Only 2 years ago, won a race in torrid conditions. If he keeps developing the way he has through Super Formula, and obviously last year in his rookie season, I think they may have the future anchor of Chip Ganassi Racing on their hands.
Yeah, because heaven knows Chip's been looking for quite a while. It's almost hard to believe, but at one point that was looking like Graham Rahal.
God, remember Graham Rahal not racing for Dad's team?
You remember Graham Rahal racing for Chip? That seemed like forever ago. Rahal and Charlie Kimball and the Ganassi B team.
If it was forever ago, what do you mean? I wasn't a fan of the series when Rahal wasn't racing for his dad. Just crazy. But that could be it. The anchor guy for now.
I want to see it work because heaven knows guys like Karam, Ed Jones, obviously Rosenquist last year, all of them had the incredible, amazing talent that they could have thrived as Ganassi's driver of the future, and they're not here anymore at this team. So I'm hoping it works out for Alex.
Ganassi, I think, had the effect that Andretti did last year. In that time period, Ganassi absolutely, they overextended themselves. They were running too many cooks in the kitchen. I think building your team primarily around Dixon and Alex, I think it gives them a balanced approach of someone who's an established winner, champion, every accolade under the sun, and someone who they can build around in the future.
So is it going to be like Andretti, where it's like 2 frontline guys, and then you've got Marcus Ericsson more in a supporting role, and then see what you get with Jimmie? Because we've got to talk a bit about Jimmie here as well. Like, again, we talked about Scott. Different end of the career scale here, obviously.
Different series.
Very different series.
All the winning.
And Jimmie is obviously he's been an IMSA right now as well, and with mixed success. How do you feel about Jimmie?
Jimmie's done pretty well in IMSA, considering, I think this year may be the first time he's ever driven a car without a solid rear axle in motorsport.
Pretty much.
I also like how King remained completely silent during that Alex section there.
Yeah. I got nothing to say.
Still angry about it.
He knows it up close.
Still angry on Maine.
Fair.
Jimmie Johnson at one point was winning so much that they were changing the point system in NASCAR every year to try and counter all of his winning.
I can remember at the time I was not a huge Jimmie Johnson fan because he was putting pain and anguish on all the guys I rooted for instead. But after a while, you start to appreciate just what he accomplished in his prime in NASCAR. It's hard to think. When was the last time that we've ever gotten excited about a 46-year-old rookie?
Yeah, we've got the oldest rookie class imaginable in IndyCar this year. Everyone's old.
It's like last year it was all young and ridiculously exciting. This is the complete other end of the scale when the youngest rookie is 27. And there's two, we got one in his 20s, one in their mid-30s, and another one who's gonna be in his late 40s later this year. Who would afford it? It's crazy, but I mean, King, what do you make of Jimmie? Like, where is he gonna fit into all of this?
I don't know. It's just one of those things where it feels like we're really not gonna know until practice on Friday.
It's gonna be fascinating.
I tend to agree. I mean, we had parts of the 12 Hours of Sabring where he was driving in the DPI class where he was genuinely going blow for blow with established prototype drivers on pace.
But we know that's a much different discipline entirely.
Much different discipline, but when you consider how different both classes are to what he had been driving for the better part of 20 years.
Yeah.
And for those guys who don't listen to... For those guys who don't listen to the show regularly, we gush about the talent in IMSA in this Discord on a regular basis. We gush over how great IMSA's driver lineups are across the board. So for Jimmie to fit in and not look like a sore thumb is already impressive as it is.
Yeah, I'm happy to see him expanding his horizons for just... he'd done everything there was to do in NASCAR, and now he wants to go do something else.
And honestly, I respect the dedication and the respect he's got for the series, and the fact he is going both barrels into this. He's coming in humble. He's doing the hard work behind the scenes. He's taking this incredibly seriously. This is not a Fernando Alonso vanity run. This is, a serious attempt to make it his future, even at age 46, which is a weird thing to say in motorsport, but here we are. So yeah, that's your big block of 12, the big three. All running 4-car lineups.
And Tony Kanaan for one last ride at Ganassi.
Again?
Again.
Sure?
Again. How many times is this? I mean...
His third last ride?
His third last drive, I think second with Ganassi.
Yeah.
Really love to see Kanaan get one last one. Back in the good old IRL days where they were having to make great liveries to hide those crap wagons.
Ooh.
To quote a lesser driver, I'd love to see him get one more win.
Yeah,
as one of my boys from when I was a little kid.
Oh yeah,
I think he's still definitely got the drive to do it, and I think it's going to be good that Tony Kanaan is going to have another shot at a retirement tour, and this time there are actually going to be fans at all these venues that can actually come out to see it.
Yeah,
because I think he didn't. I think he want to look back on it as just like, you know what? I don't want to go out and closed doors races. Lucky to finish in the top 10 at age 840. No offense to AJ Foot Racing, but yeah, this is a much better platform to wind down an IndyCar career. I think he'll do well at it. And just dying about on things, Marcus Ericsson will bring the car home in the points. I would hope that he wins a race. I would love to see him make further progress and not just be, the midfield F1 guy that turned into the midfield IndyCar dry.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, to follow on from that point real quick, we joke about him a lot. We make all the Vin Diesel jokes under the sun. We all like Tony Kanaan. He's a great, funny, charismatic figure. He's embraced sim racing in the last year as well. He's done a lot for the sim racing scene, if you know who to ask, as well. He's one of the all-round great guys in the sport. So, you know,
go back a few days in the Motorsport 101 Discord, and we were watching Family Feud featuring IndyCar drivers and Tony Kanaan kissing the rest of his.
It's impossible not to like that man. It's hilarious. He's hilarious. Doesn't take himself too seriously. Charismatic, great guy. Wish him all the best in the ovals with Chip, and hopefully he gets to go out on his terms in a blaze of glory. That would be cool to see. Those are the big 12. All 12 cars in the big 3 contenders. We're going to get into the smaller, more independent teams now, and first on the list is Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, RLL, and they've retained their lineup. Graham Rahal in the 15 car, Takuma Sato in the 13 car. Oh, that's 30. Sorry, not 13. The 30 car, the reigning Indy 500 champion as well. Not a lot to say about them besides they were just really good last year. Like Graham Rahal very quietly went about
I hesitate to call them midfielders. They were really punching it up with the 3 teams we considered the dominant forces in IndyCar.
Yeah, like Graham Rahal had the quietest top 6 championship finish I can remember for a long time. Because he didn't win a race, but he was in the top 5 times last season, including the 500. Takuma won the damn things. Obviously, he took a lot of the glory for RLL, but Graham Rahal put in work. Again, top 6 championship finish. They were 6th and 7th overall last year, and again, they were knocking on the door of the big boys almost every week.
Let's keep something in mind as well. Due to circumstances at the first race, Takuma Sato could not take part.
Yeah, they missed the first round. So, despite losing out on 50-plus points in the first race, Takuma still finished 7th overall. It was a mighty effort from RLL last season. They had the 500 win, and obviously he missed the first round of the season as well, through obviously having a damaged car and couldn't take the grid. So, despite
he just keeps
all that,
getting better.
6th and 7th. Yeah. They keep getting better and better. I mean, it might genuinely be harsh now to call them midfielder because they were the top contenders to the usual big 3 we had last year, top to bottom. And the question is, can they build on that?
I mean, like I said earlier, Graham Rahal was just relentlessly consistent. Quiet, but almost always in the top 5. Cranking out just great points. A little quiet because he didn't have a win. Although he was in contention in 2 or 3 races last year for at least a podium, if not a win. And, of course, finished 3rd at the 500, hounding Scott Dixon for 2nd place.
It was just hard for Graham to make passes as it was for most of the field that day in the 500. It was just track position was king that day during Indianapolis, and yeah, it was hard for. But I do remember Graham was right on the back of Dixon towards the end of that race as Sato took off. We were this
Dixon
close to an RLL 1-2. Yeah, we were this close to an RLL 1-2 finish. And how crazy would that have been for Bobby Rahal and company?
I think Bobby would have exploded.
As if 1-3 is terrible.
Yeah. I think, and David Letterman's beard grew 10 sizes that day.
Oh dear, very, very much so. I mean, I think the big question really for them is this a one-off? Can they keep doing this? Because they're going to have a lot more cars in front of them to challenge this year because the big 3 are now all running 4-car setups, and they have
strength
loaded
in numbers
names in their seats.
Is something they don't have. They have 2 excellent drivers. You know, we give Graham a lot of shtick on this show, but when he's on it, he's very, very good. As good as anyone in the series. I mean, we're talking about before technical difficulties. Graham Rahal was the only Honda worth a damn in 2015 when they were running a single car team, and we were wondering, does this team really have a future? And Graham proved that he could fight with the big boys. Now they have a team whose performance is as strong as it was then, and Takuma has turned himself into a permanent threat for the Indy 500.
At age
2 and
44.
4 years.
He's 44 years old now, Takuma, and he's now turned into one of the frontline 500 challengers. And yeah, it's only going to be a harder challenge because, like I said, they've got 12 now top flight cars or 12 established top tier cars that we know about running against them. And yeah, RLL's always swum up, had to fight the tide from an uphill standpoint to challenge. But they did it last year with flying colours. So that there's a lot of good to come out of that RLL camp right now. A lot to be excited about. I mean, you know, maybe they can win more than just the 500, which is a weird thing to say with Takuma. But
if you're only going to win one race, pretty solid one to win.
It's a good pick. Yeah, it's a good pickup, certainly. One of their main contenders alongside them in that, shall we say, upper midfield battle. It's the brand you know and love, folks. It's the Harrow McLaren Schmidt Peterson team.
McSchmevy.
McSchmevy. And yeah, returning to the number 5 car, which I'm still not bitter about at all. Patricio O'Ward, who was 4th in the championship last year, which again an incredible season from the young Mexican. And no more Oliver Askew in the 7 car. Instead, Felix Rosenquist joins over from Chip Ganassi Racing, who was 11th last year. And, I mean, we gushed about Palu last year on this show, and rightly so.
He was fantastic.
Amazing how he didn't win a race. I mean, the one we'll probably remember most was Road America, where he was denied by his now teammate.
Right. Don't piss off... Don't piss off your fellow driver on the first race of a doubleheader. They may be in a position to be lapped, and they may not give you the right of way.
No. But yeah, amazing how that turns out. But Pato was second 3 times last year. It was like the Jack Miller role of MotoGP, only in IndyCar. Didn't win a race, was second on 3 separate occasions, but just kept racking up the scorer's sheet and then ended up in 4th overall. I remember when we sat down as a podcast and watched the season finale in St. Petersburg, and we were like, wait a minute, Pato O'Ward is 4th overall? We couldn't believe it. We didn't realise how the maths had shaken out, and yeah.
I mean, we saw it in his first year and what ended up being a pretty disastrous season. But we saw the flashes of it. We saw the proof in the pudding. And once he got some equipment underneath him, lit the fuse and let him go.
Yeah. I think I've always held Patricio O'Ward's talent in very high regard. And I think just having that stability in his career, which he didn't have in 2019, through a myriad of reasons, as he bounced from series to series and from program to program, that certainly helped. Did you know that he finished only all but 3 laps this past season? And only with Newgarden and Dixon, of course, completing every lap last year?
That's pretty good company.
Pretty good company, pretty reliable, very consistent. That's rule number 1. Be consistent. Don't make any major errors, and he didn't really over the course of the year. And if you do that, you'll always punch above your weight a little bit, and that's exactly what Pato did to a massive margin. And RJ made a fantastic point. He was all over the place in 2019. We had no idea what this man's future was going to hold. Obviously, the Red Bull Academy, you know, a changing of the guard at Schmidt-Peterson, you know, a potential Formula 2 season which never materialised. It's been a crazy time for Pato.
This is the first time Pato's had his team. In IndyCar and really just in motorsport in general. This is his team. They've built around him. He is their future. And I think he has to beware can't really call it a sophomore slump because this would be technically his 3rd year, but not to run before he can walk. If he just keeps building on what he did last year, he's already going to be a championship contender. He's already that good.
I would just say, just keep doing what you're doing, kid, because what you did last year was excellent. The win will come if you keep doing that. You know, you put yourself in positions like that, eventually your luck will come good. I have no doubt about that in my mind at all. And that is a hell of a young talent that McLaren's got underneath them there, and a guy you can build a team around, certainly. And Felix, I mean, Felix is an interesting case because it's like we've all been extremely high on the guy we used to nickname Driver for Hire on this show.
Felix Rosenquist.
He's found a home in IndyCar. First year, we gave him a bit of a benefit of the doubt. Second year, improved, got his first win in the series. That was good. But then he was caught up in a very competitive midfield, finished 11th overall, and then Chip thought, I got this another younger, faster guy I can bring in instead. And
I think
it was a surprise when he left. He left to join Era McLaren SP, thinking, I have a better chance of standing out here than I ever would have at Chip Ganassi Racing.
Well, when you're paired with Scott Dixon, the team is he's always going to be the point with which that team builds around. Felix blows really hot and then he blows really cold. And he's got a little bit of in between, but I think if he can eliminate the cold and just be more consistent, he's going to move his way up the point standings. I'm not so sure if... I kind of feel like he's in a similar situation here. I think McLaren is going to build around Patricio more than they ever would. Well, anyone else that might come into that team.
Why wouldn't you? You got a guy who was 4th overall last year and is still not even 25 yet. I mean, in IndyCar, that's gold dust. And talents like that in that series don't drop very often. No. So to have that and have Felix Rosenquist in your 2-car lineup, you could do a hell of a lot worse than those two right there. RLL is going to be their main threat. And again, Schmidt-Peterson is a team that is desperate to do two things. They want to establish themselves against the big boys, and they desperately want a 500. We've seen them throw the house at the 500 with, shall we say, again, mixed success over the last few years.
Again, when it's good, it's great. When it's bad,
it's bad.
You're packing up and going home.
Indeed.
I think last year was, it says in the notes, proof that this team can do great things. Now you got to go out and do them.
Absolutely.
And we've also got a third McLaren driver. Another McLaren reunion I never figured would happen. One Pablo Montoya.
JPM is back.
In the creamsicle, as we have affectionately nicknamed it, for the 500. And I think he really bolsters their 500 chances. He's going for his third 500 in 6 attempts and brings a wealth of experience in just about anything with 4 wheels to a very young team.
If Montoya's got a good setup, he just flies around Indianapolis. He's just that good at it. And
that's going to trickle down for Patricio and Felix as well.
You'd think, so if you want to take a punt on a third wheel for the month of May, it's a pretty good name to take out of the hat. A guy that's won 33%, or should I say, won 40% of his attempts at the 500 so far in his career.
Not a bad hit rate.
It's not bad.
That's pretty decent.
Pretty decent.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, I mean, his accolades speak for themselves. One of the fastest guys in F1 when he was in F1. IMSA champion, many-time Daytona 24 Hours champion, and he's still putting in great performances when he shows up in whatever you put him in.
Indeed, a lot to be excited about there in the McLaren Schmidt-Peterson camp. On the other end of the scale, it says next on my list is AJ Foyt Racing.
It can only get better, right?
It can only get better because if it gets worse, we have to question the existence of this team.
Yeah, for perspective, Dalton Kenneth is now there in the number 4 car. He was the bottom ranking of all the full-time runners last year. by a distance.
He only had 2 finishes inside the top 20.
Oh my god.
It was even worse than I thought.
And second driver, you know him, you love him, Sebastian Bourdais. His quality speaks for itself, and he couldn't do jack diddly squat with this team last year as a part-time runner.
Yeah. 3 races at the end of last year didn't really go anywhere with it. It was unspectacular.
He had that 4th at St. Petersburg, though.
That was the only bright point for that team all year, though. And
Pretty
again,
much.
Sebastian Bourdais his talent is above reproach.
I mean, he just won
the
Sebring.
charts.
He just won Sebring a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
The French pain train.
Yeah. Seb Bourdais is still Seb Bourdais, and one of the best drivers of this generation. The problem is he's driving for AJ Foyt. And I'm not even sure a man of Bourdais' ability could paper over all of those cracks.
That's the thing. They had another veteran guy like that, and Tony Kanon's just left. They've invested in exciting young talents, and Carlos Munoz and Mateus Leist are all out of the sport.
It's
all of their
very
efforts.
telling that no matter who they plug in to the driver's seats, nothing really works.
And we
They've
know
had
that they don't
everything.
have that many resources. We know that Dalton Kenneth is bringing in money to go along with his engineering skills and a pretty pedestrian Indy Lights record.
There's just not much to really get excited about with this team, which is a shame because there are great people in this team.
Yeah.
We know there's plenty of talented individuals, but it just never really comes together for Foyt, does it?
Yeah, it's a bit like what the Cleveland Browns were in the NFL about 2 or 3 years ago when they were having the Hugh Jackson era where they were barely winning anything. And I was sitting there and I thought, a good Browns team would be great for the game. Like, they play in such a competitive division. And now we've seen Cleveland, who, made the playoffs last year.
They're
upset
not bad.
a couple of big-name division rivals. I look at that in the same way I look at AJ Foyt Racing. It would be great for the sport if Foyt's team was competitive and was up
Regardless
there
of what you
challenging.
think about the man himself, AJ Foyt is one of the greatest racing drivers to ever do it. That's not an exaggeration. That is fact.
He's a
And in
monster.
this series, more than any other. And yet his team has been relegated to irrelevance for,
This is
decade
way
and a half.
before reunification, by the way.
way
They were
before.
starting to trend downhill once all the other teams from CART started leaving.
Yeah, once the teams that actually mattered in American open wheel racing jumped back over to IRL, AJ Foyt took the trip down, and bar the occasional flash, haven't really shown anything since. And it's a shame because there is a lot of great drivers who come into this team. Give King a second here. Great drivers have come into this team and have walked out with their careers in tatters.
It says a lot that, Takuma Sato managed to get some success in his first year, and then by the end
Drove
of that,
out of his mind
Yeah.
to win a race.
he drove out of his mind to win a race, and then by the end of it, we all thought, this dude is washed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the contrary, to be proven deadly wrong, the minute
Walked
he
into
got out of
Andretti.
AJ Foyt.
Walked into Andretti and dunked a 500 win on Elio Castroneves' head.
And I'd love to see that happen for Sebastian Bourdais. I'd love to see him get at least one more win to close out the career because, he didn't end his time at Dale Coyne Racing, or his time at Dale Coyne Racing did not end on the terms that maybe he would have wanted it, or that a driver of his caliber deserves. I know a bunch of bitter Champ Car fans think that he is the worst driver to ever win 4 consecutive national titles. He's also the only one that's ever done it.
Well, he is the worst because he's still the only one who ever did it.
Club of one. It works both ways.
I would love to see him find his way back to victory lane. I'd love to see him come out on top, and
Absolutely.
I'd love to see some forward progress from Dalton Kenneth. He seems like a very smart, nice dude. I don't see him amounting to much more than a replacement level driver. There have been worse replacement levels drivers, to be fair.
RJ, what have I told you? What have I told you about on this show? About if the first thing you say about a driver's ability is that they're a very nice dude. What does that normally mean?
It means that they're replacement level at best.
We sound really down on them. We want to see more out of them because obviously, as Dre said, it would be great for the sport. I just don't see it happening with this team as currently constructed, both internally and out on track.
No. Indeed. No one wants that. Like, we want this team to do well, but they just don't have the resources, don't have the logistics, and don't really have the talent to make it work. I mean, they got Seb, but Seb Bourdais on his own is not gonna cut it. And they've had talented dudes in this camp before, and it's still not worked out. Remember,
we know how good Carlos Munoz is.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, this team had Connor Daley and Carlos Munoz, and they produced the square root of fuck all, and both got cleaned out. It wasn't great, and they're better than that. And
they've proved that they're better than that since and before.
Indeed. I'm just going to pause for a second now and wait for King on this one. Oh, there he is. Hi. He's popped up again.
Welcome back.
Hi, King. Shout out to your mum. She seems cool. We love King's mum. Right, let's get into Ed Carpenter racing. Our favourite comedic midfielding team in the field. We've got
Space Guardian Ed Carpenter.
Space Guardian Ed Carpenter. What a phrase that is. And one that completely makes sense if you knew the context behind it. Beautiful. Yeah, he's back again in the number 20 car. He's splitting that with Journeyman, the new driver for hire, Connor Daley, who can't get a full-time seat to save his life, but also is too good not to just be left on the curb. Daley will be splitting that car with him, but he does get his own car for the 500. He gets his own 47 US Air Force car for the 500, but otherwise he splits the 20 car with Ed Carpenter. He'll be doing all the road and street courses. Returning in the 21 car as well is the 2020 Rookie of the Year, Rinus VeeKay. Somebody do a spin move on their chair. No, not quite.
I'm
but
not
still
sitting in my chair right now.
Whoa. Yeah, there we go. There's some rotation. Yes, but again, Rinus VeeKay, again, another one of the incredibly talented young rookies that hit the scene last year and immediately impressed people.
Only Chevy to make the Fast 9 at the 500.
Yeah, the fastest Chevy in qualifying trim and the only guy in the top 13 that was a Chevy was Rinus VeeKay. Incredibly impressive kid. The one that stood out for me was the wheel-to-wheel fight he had with Colton Herter at the Harvest Grand Prix. And I literally turned...
superb.
I literally turned around, hit Twitter, and said, if that's the future of this series, the series is in very safe hands. And, yeah, incredibly talented kid. Let's not forget, he came out of the Max Verstappen camp. And if he's even 50% of Max's talent, we're looking at a very special kid here. That's going to be a lot of where the promise lies in this Ed Carpenter team. Is going to be seeing how Rinus VeeKay develops.
Yeah, I mean, team has generally hovered in the hall of pretty good. And then at the 500, they pour in all the resources because that's the big race. Yeah. That is, Ed Carpenter is the hometown guy.
That's the only thing that's keeping him going at this point. As a driver.
He's never going to log off. He wants that 500. And,
he's going to be here at age 50 like Buddy Lazier. Just going to keep trying. Yep. So, yeah, he's going to keep trying and keep rolling. Let's not forget, a couple of years ago, he ran in second for the vast majority of that 500.
He led the race.
He
led that pole.
Yeah, he led several, like Ed, I know we joke about Ed a lot on this show, but at the 500, he is still every bit a relevant contender, even way into his age 40s. Carpenter is still an excellent
early on, and in 2019, he was the only guy keeping Pagenaud honest at the start of the race. Those two were just beating the brakes off each other.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He's still got it on ovals. Oval specialist Ed Carpenter. And as you said, Rinus VeeKay was electric last year. Rookie of the Year. fastest Chevy at Indy in qualifying, and a little rough around the edges, but the good was good.
Yeah.
Very good.
First and foremost, it's really hard to be a rookie in IndyCar. So if you're running somewhere in the top 5, competing for wins at any stage of your rookie season, you are in good hands. He's very much the future of this team because Ed Carpenter Racing have not had a legitimate number 1 dude at this team. Not for lack of trying, because they've had dudes that have had flashes of talent, but it hasn't worked out. They haven't had dudes since Josef Newgarden left for Penske.
Yeah.
Yep. And
there's big Newgarden vibes out of this kid.
I'd argue in that seat he's been even more impressive than Newgarden was there. At least at this stage, and big shoes to fill.
Y'all want to talk about impressive? Let's talk about that mullet Connor Daly's been growing in the offseason.
Oh my god!
You thought that is like the classic Camaro cut.
Oh my god!
I drive a 2002 Camaro, the Bugatti Veyron of the trailer park.
That is quite the mullet that Connor Daly has grown, and it's one of those things that made me realize. Oh my god, he's 29 years old now. He isn't just.
He still feels like a baby.
He's 29, Cam. He's 30 in December.
It's the effect of him not really being in a full-time seat for years, and we look over. Wait, he's how old?
Yeah.
He kind of strung together a full-time deal between Ed Carpenter and Carlin, because of that whole situation.
Jumping between two teams,
that's
not really count.
I mean, granted, when he was there at Carlin, he was doing a lot of heavy lifting when he was there.
I can't believe his back held up underneath all that carrying.
Very sore. And that's just it. That's the Daley way. Carrying, fighting, tooth and nail to whatever he can get in this series. He so wants to race in this series full-time. He's not had a full-time seat in a couple of years. He's been determined to try and secure a full-time seat in the series. And this is the nearest he's gotten in a couple of years now. So I hope this is the one where it works out, because I think Daley is more than good enough to have his own car in the series.
Yeah, when he has the equipment under him, he is
solid
upper midfielder, and give him time in the team to actually gel with everyone, because people underrate how important stability is, and knowing that you have a job in the sport and you have a ride to just go out and do your job. And Daley hasn't had that, and he's still put in excellent performances.
He hasn't had that since all that potential at Foyt was flushed down the toilet 4 years ago.
We just talked about.
Yeah. Wasn't it just like when he was a rookie at Dale Coyne, we were thinking, are we sure Alexander Rossi was the rookie of the year just because he won the 500?
Yeah.
That's the kind of potential that Connor Daly has. He just hasn't been able to show that.
And since then, this is the 8th different team he's driven for in IndyCar, which has to be up there on some sort of record sheet for most different teams he's raced for, because
the old Jeff Rancourt plan.
All right, we need to throw him in the get him in the 3 car at Penske and get him in the 48 at Ganassi for one-offs.
Hey, I got bingo here. But yeah, Daley is a talented kid. He'll make that work. I shouldn't be calling him kid. He's a year older than I am. I mean, shit. But here we are. You forget he's 29 again. It's just one of those crazy things. He's been such a journeyman now, in and out of the series, and yeah, I hope this is the one where it finally breaks through for him, because the man can drive, and he's a great asset for the paddock as well. He's a very funny, likable young man, and who's he's endearing to a lot of people on the internet.
He's someone where we can say, he's a good dude, he's a funny dude, and he can wheel a race car.
Yeah.
What more could you want? Dale Coyne, speak of the devil. When it comes to fun teams, now we've mentioned that Vassar Sullivan is funding the 18 car again. Ed Jones is back in the series, and we're going to bring back the Ed Jones-o-meter, where we switch between plucky Brit and struggling Emirati. Depends on the context. Well, that'll be fun to keep an eye on over the course of 2021.
You want to talk about a team of reclamation projects and wild
no goodness.
If you love that, Dale Coyne is for you, because who's splitting that 51 car?
Romain Grosjean and Pietro Fittipaldi.
Wow.
Grosjean on the road courses, Fittipaldi on ovals.
That's team redemption. I mean, like that's really what you should be renaming Dale Coyne
we talk
Racing.
about redemption. We also should talk about the co-owners of that 51 car, who, let's just say, as of time of recording, Rick Ware Racing is going through it.
It is really awful that we are putting James Davison in a position to be a sympathetic character in NASCAR, but that's beside. We're not talking about that. Let's talk about Ed Jones. Let's talk about Pietro Fittipaldi. Let's start talking about Romain Grosjean, because we haven't seen this dude in a competitive car, a car that looks capable of winning races, and what sounds like almost a decade. Since he was at Lotus the Third.
Since 2013, we have not seen Romain Grosjean in a car capable of displaying his talents, because for all the memes, for all the jokes, Romain Grosjean was the only man giving Sebastian Vettel any challenge in the second half of 2013.
And he was arguably the only man, he was constantly the man that was doing way more work for us than I think a lot of people would have. And I think people only stopped to realize how productive he actually was when we almost lost him in Bahrain.
Yeah, not only that, but watching him run a Lotus E22 in 5th place in 2014 until the engine let go in Spain. That horrible car that killed my favorite team in F1. I'm okay. Look,
in that regard,
and after
going to race for Dale Coyne, this should be easy.
Oh my God. Not to mention watching the events of the first Grand Prix in 2021 where, well, one Haas driver didn't make it past the third turn.
Yeah.
And you realize, maybe it wasn't all Grosjean and Magnussen.
I will say,
really?
though, Grosjean is coming to learn a whole new set of circuits. Whole new set of road courses. It's a whole new different ball game for him. We understand that, but he is a more versatile driver than people realize, and he is a better driver than people have realized or would like to admit.
And if you watch on social media, he has fully embraced the grind of trying to learn this IndyCar. He's actually been posting helmet cam onboards every time he tests.
It's fantastic to watch.
It's wonderful to watch him work. I've always loved the way he corners a car, and listening to him swear under his breath when he makes a mistake is kind of funny.
I just like how
we've all been that guy on a racing sim.
I like how every F1 journeyman that winds up in IndyCar, and I know that's like a cliche at this point for F1 journeymen to just go to IndyCar, but they all seem to have fun. And once they get here, I don't know what it is.
It's a much more relaxed series, I think, across the board. A much more unified paddock in the sense of everyone knows each other. Everyone jokes around. No one is looking for every last ounce of dirt on their fellow competitor.
Agreed.
And I think
Grosjean... It's a great fit for him.
Yeah, I think Grosjean wants to just get back to enjoying racing. Because I can't imagine that he was enjoying the last couple of years at Haas.
No, definitely not. And yeah, like I said, it's gonna be very interesting to see how he goes. Again, he's not going to drive the ovals. He said, "Hey, if we're in a championship position, I may consider doing Gateway." Because he's missing the 500. But
walk before you can run, Romain. Come on.
Yeah.
Take it easy, Romain. Take it easy. But I mean, great to see him. Great to see Pietro Fittipaldi back in this series, because my man, he's been through it in all the last couple of years in motorsport, to say the least.
Jeez, we were gonna see him in this series, and then, well, in an LMP1 car, there's few worse places to lose all power steering than at the bottom of Eau Rouge.
Yeah, and he arguably came back. He came back way, way too soon for that. I'm amazed that he came back.
He came back and was involved in the crash that injured Robert Wickens, was he not?
Yeah, 2018. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was involved in that crash, first thing back, with legs that were still not fully healed.
Which was never a good sign. And it's a shame because Pietro Fittipaldi, it's great that he got that cup of coffee at Haas because for a while it looked like he was going to be doing no racing at all in 2020. And it's great that he's getting this handful of races because, hey, it's another legacy driver. The Fittipaldi name means something in IndyCar through Emerson's 2 500 wins, through his national championship. Of course, his nephew Christian had some success, and I'm glad that Pietro's going to get a chance. I want to see a Fittipaldi running up front at the 500 again. I would love to see that.
It's a name in multiple series of motorsport that is just it's rarefied air to be a Fittipaldi, and on his own merits, Pietro has proved himself to be a perfectly capable driver.
Yeah, to do as well as he did with no experience standing in for Romain Grosjean. Yeah, I know he was finishing largely at the back in a crap car, but he
was in a crap car.
He did much better than he had any right. Any driver would have had any right to be under the circumstances he was given. And talking about drivers that were out of racing entirely, because remember, Ed Jones' fallback option after losing his IndyCar ride was supposed to be DTM, and then that fell through for 2020. So he just spent all last year on the sidelines. Now he's back full time, replacing some other guy that left the series. Wonder what
doesn't
happened.
matter.
But Ed Jones, golly.
And
I would love to see him recapture the form that many people believe should have made him Indy 500 Rookie of the Year in 2017.
Yeah, I was going to say,
work out.
He's back at the team where he first burst on the scene, when he came through and had a very impressive rookie season, got the Chip Ganassi seat in the 10 car, didn't work out, probably a bit too much too soon for Ed. But even so...
Yeah, talk about getting thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, very, very talented driver. Was very solid at Dale Coyne the first year he was there. Multiple top 10s. 4th place finish at the 500. Yeah, 3 podium finishes as well. The guy was excellent at Dale Coyne racing. And like I said, we talk about Dale Coyne a lot. If there's one team that likes to throw the dice strategically and see if they can get their way up the field that way, Dale Coyne loves a gamble. And that could easily see some of those runners up the field a couple of times next year, and that in itself will be fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Most of the time, when they're not employing drivers that we, have mixed emotions towards, let's say, they're always a very, very fun team.
Yeah. It's amazing that they are the last of the survivors left from the Champ Car World Series era.
Yeah. They are the last ones standing of the other side of the IndyCar split.
Indeed. Now, we've got 2 more teams to go. They're mostly going to be running one car throughout the rest of the season, but we'll touch on them briefly. First of all, we like them around here. Meyer Shank Racing here. Our friend and yours. Let's go, Jack Harvey, back in the 60
Friend
car.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Jack Harvey. We stand. Let's go, Jack Harvey. He'll be in the number 60 car. Flip the numbers around for a second, and in the 06 car running a 5-race schedule in 2021. Anybody got the gel ready, boys? Because
you're reigning but not defending IMSA Top Class champion.
Reigning but not defending, but he did co-drive in that car that won the 24 Hours of Daytona this year.
Yeah.
Helio Castroneves, who still has magnificent hair.
Thank you. Perfect. While we all get our hair of varying quality back into place.
We know what he's all about. He has a few Indy 500 wins.
3 of them.
Casual 3 Indy 500 wins.
Greatest driver to never win a national championship, for my money.
Probably.
Yeah. No arguments there. First time in IndyCar out of the Penske stable.
Yeah, it's weird seeing him it was weird seeing him at McLaren last year, and it's now even weirder to see him in hot pink at Meyer Shank Racing, because that is going to be weird to see him in the 06 car. He's still determined to make history and tie the all-time record for 4 500 wins. He'll be 46 years old when he takes that on.
46 years old.
He'd have just turned 46 as he attempts once again to climb the fence, and that is going to be fascinating to keep an eye on, because we all know Helio comes alive when it's the month of May. So that's going to be great to see how that rolls up.
Not just that, I mean, just like the drivers, the up there in age drivers we talked about previously in this episode, he's as good as ever. I mean, he took that IMSA championship last year by force.
Indeed. Like, it's going to be great to see how he goes up. And, of course, we love Jack Harvey on this show. Don't let the 15th in the championship last season fool you. I think the last year and a half, he's been way more impressive than his overall standing show. Like,
absolutely.
Jack
I think them... Last year was a big transition year, going from effectively an Andretti satellite team to their own team proper. That, plus they've moved back to sports cars this year in terms of prototypes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change internally at this team, and I think it could work for them or work against them. I hope... I've always liked Shank in sports car racing. When they go all in, when they put their best minds to a project, they are as good a team as does exist in motorsport.
And I think having Castroneves there is going to help. Harvey has shown some incredible results for the limited resources that they've had. I expect him to make further progress. Heck, I wouldn't be even surprised if he pulls off a first career win out of nowhere, just like that.
Yeah,
Indianapolis road course again.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And plenty of sponsorship flowing into this team now. They're getting resources together. They are a team that, on their own merits, they should be looking to move up the grid this year. Yeah, and I think they can.
Agreed. Last team as well to get out of the way. Carlin is back. We've only got one full-time car, and it's being split. They're going to have a second car for the 500, but that's not been confirmed who's driving it yet. Max Chilton is back in the 59 Carlin car, but he's not doing the ovals because Chilton vetoed that a couple of years ago.
But he's doing the 500.
But he's doing the 500.
Just the 500, which now, as a result of schedule changes, is by an order of magnitude the fastest oval on the calendar.
Yeah, I don't get it, but obviously, the Chilton thinks the 500 is worth the risk, but not the other ovals that are on the calendar.
He thinks it's worth doing that beautiful 2020 helmet and then misspelling Dario Franchitti's name.
Oh, that still hurts.
I'll never not be mad about it.
Oh, it was a stunning helmet design, and it was just that one little typo. No, but good to see Chilton back. Again, another guy that is like, it's amazing how he's like, I don't want to do ovals all that much, when his best attribute when he was in the series was his ovals.
Better than you think at ovals. Only Indy Lights win was on an oval. Best IndyCar finish was on an oval.
2017, while we were all focusing on what would happen with Alonso's car before it sent a connecting rod into low Earth orbit, we forget Max Chilton was leading at the time.
Yeah,
and holding that lead.
Led 50 laps in that race. Like, you
don't lead 50 laps at Indianapolis by mistake.
No. Man can drive an oval, which is weird, which is why he's not doing them. Apart from one, which is very strange. But yeah, Carlin just needs to throw more resources at it, I think, more than anything else. They're still relatively new. It's still a big step up from their lights days.
For the project, and I don't know if he's the right guy to be leading that team. Ideally, you would like to have somebody who is, let's just say, not just there for the sponsorship considerations. I know Matt Chilton is more than just sponsorship considerations, but his place at the team is certainly helped by those sponsorship considerations.
It still feels like a toe-in-the-water project, yet we're 4 years in.
Yeah, strangest year 4 of this project now, isn't it? That's come around quick, hasn't it? Like, jeez. Still work to do for the Carlin team. hopefully Chilton will be the guy to lead them up the field again, and we'll have to wait and see how we go. As mentioned, all the 500 runners that are going to be part-time we'll mention in the month of May later on down the road. But before we get out of Dodge for the day, gentlemen, I'm going to hit you up. Your series champion will be...
Josef Newgarden. You already know what it's all about.
Oh, Lord. Who do I pick for champion? Alexander Rossi.
Ooh. Cam.
It'll be a little spicy. Colton Herter.
Whoa.
I love that.
Do I go with 4 different names just for fun, even though Scott Dixon is out there dangling like a carrot for me to take?
Do it.
I really should, shouldn't I?
You know, because we know that if Chris was here, he would pick Scott Dixon because Krista Hardy is boring.
He is extremely boring.
We love you, buddy.
We do love you.
Are we really gonna have 4 predictions on this show and Scott Dixon is not one of them? That's blasphemy. That is sheer blasphemy. I'm gonna take Scott Dixon. I can't resist.
Okay.
Like I was this close to saying Will Power, but I was like, it's like Will Dixon. It's just you can't help yourself.
Oh god, the fusion dance. Now he's invulnerable in qualifying and in the race.
It's the ultimate combination. And who wins the 500?
You know me. Simon Pagenaud. Return to form after last year's disaster.
I think it's going to be a car from ECR, but it's not going to be the one the owner wants. I have a gut feeling maybe Renus VK wins the Indianapolis 500.
Wow.
Are y'all in YouTube chat
That's
writing
spicy.
this down?
That's a spicier pick than my champion pick. Damn.
I
That's hot.
like that. That's why I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to say that it's going to be Scott Dixon's time to win that second 8500 title and give him some additional legitimacy that I don't think he needs to establish, but yet...
He doesn't. He doesn't need
No,
it.
he doesn't.
It doesn't, but it would be nice,
like
wouldn't it? I'm going to take the man that I think has got more upside at that track than anyone in the field. I'm going to take Alex Rossi to win the 500. I think he's going to put it all together again this year, and like when he's on it at the 500, he is unbelievable entertainment and just ultimate level speed is unlike anything I've seen at that track when Rossi is dialed in. I'm going to be fascinated for that. It's going to be a fascinating season.
It's hard to not look very smug remembering 2019.
Of course you didn't, Cam. Never, not in a million years. That'll just about do it here for our IndyCar season preview. Again, can't wait. Season opener this weekend at Barber at Motorsports Park in Alabama. Good news for British viewers out there as well. Sky Sports News is showing every session live this year. So that includes the practice and qualifying. They've been very patchy about this over the last couple of years since having coverage of the series. But apparently now we're getting the whole shebang on Sky Sports F1, so yay! Check that out if you haven't already. I believe the race is 8 p.m. British time, in the UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, on the United States times, on Freedom Hours. But yeah, check it all out on there if you haven't already. If you have not watched the series before, give it a chance. It is very fun indeed. A lot of great personalities, a lot of great characters. Great track for the series. Barber races tend to be very good.
Better than people think.
Oh, definitely. It like you watch it and you think this shouldn't produce great racing, and yet it does. It's very fun to watch. It's a great series. It's a great racetrack. Hopefully, will lead to another great race we'll talk about on next week's show, most likely. So, yeah. Basically, you can find us one more time. We're on youtube.com/motorsport101 or on facebook.com/motorsport101 or on Twitter at motorsport_101. Our personal handles at Harrison101HD, at Ryan Eric King, at RJ O'Connell, and at CBuckley917. We're on Instagram at motorsport101pod, and if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/motorsport101. Well, $5 gets you early access to all of the audio versions of the show. You can upgrade to $10 for the video versions and access to the supporters club of our Discord server where you can listen to these shows live as they're being recorded. All those details and some written pieces as well. There's some fun stuff as well up there on motorsport101.com. And I've been Andre Harrison. Thank you very much for watching our IndyCar season preview. We'll be back next week to talk about that alongside an absolutely heaped weekend of motorsport, including Formula 1 at Imola, as well as MotoGP in Portimao with some ant on a bike coming back. Apparently it's quite exciting. But until then, I've been Dre Harrison. They've been Cam Buckley, RJ O'Connell, and Ryan Eric King. And until next time, sayonara.
Later, y'all!
Bye.
I don't have an outro. Kind of just vibing.
Seriously? Like, we were this close to having a show with no one picking Scott Dixon to win the title? Not one of us?
Yeah.
We're a bunch of hipsters.
We're slaves to superstition.